Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. This is Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Podcasts, Addict, Amazon Music, Audible, CastBox, YouTube. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. So excited. In this episode, we welcome back the one and only Raffi. He is here to celebrate his new picture book, Mama Loves It. And later in the show, we'll be taking a listen back to a conversation we had with Dr. Rika Rajan, all about her beautiful book, Can You Dance Like a Peacock? This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Fart Boy and Reeky Dog, Dino Doom. Fantastic new graphic novel written by New York Times bestselling author Joan Holub, who's written over 200 amazing books for kids. It's school sleepover at the museum. What could go wrong? Well, how about this? A snack-fueled explosion of garbanzo beans and peanuts unleashes a stink so powerful it brings the dinosaurs back to life. Now, Fart Boy, Reeky Dog, and their friends are in the middle of a dino-sized disaster. They have to solve tricky riddles, find missing bones, and stop the stinkiest villain of all, Professor Gravy Pants. Because if they don't, the dinosaurs could take over. Or worse, they could become Dino Dinner. This action-packed graphic novel is bursting with friendships, adventure, and enough laughs to shake the museum walls. If your kids love superheroes, if they love dinosaurs, and if they love to laugh until they can't breathe, then Fart Boy and Reeky Dog Dino Doom is the book for you. Because sometimes the power to save the world comes from the unlikeliest place. Grab your copy today and get ready for a reading adventure that's truly dynamite. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by When Fred the Snake and Friends Learn the Chinese Zodiac and the Great Race, written by Dr. Peter Cotton. Hey, did you ever wonder why 2025 was called the Year of the Snake? Well, get ready because Fred the Snake and Friends are about to take you on an unforgettable journey into the story of the Chinese Zodiac and the legendary Great Race. When Fred, Purdy, and Jack meet their new friends Connor and Ellie at school, they discover a story filled with adventure, teamwork, and a little bit of mischief. 12 animals race to reach the heavenly gate. The clever rat, the strong ox, the brave tiger, the soaring dragon, the determined snake, and all their friends racing for their place in history. Kids will love the excitement of the race, and families will love discovering the traditions, values, and celebrations of Chinese New Year together. From delicious feasts to dazzling dragons and lion dancing, this story is a joyful celebration of culture, friendship, and learning. It's more than a story, it's a chance to explore the world and celebrate what makes us all unique. Discover When Fred the Snake and Friends Learn the Chinese Zodiac and the Great Race today. Because every great story we share with our kids brings us a little closer together. Joining us once again from the lovely nation of Canada. Our guest is returning to the show to celebrate his brand new picture book. It's called Mama Loves It. Please welcome back to the show legendary singer, recording artist, and author Raffi. Raffi, how are you?
Hello, that's quite the intro. How do you do? How do you do?
We're doing it. It's so great to have you back on. Tell us all about Mama Loves It, please.
Well, it's a song that I wrote and recorded a while back with the Good Lovelies, a trio from the Toronto area. And it's a song about kids pitching in to do the housework, to make things go right with the family, you know, because every family has chores that need to get done. And my fans love this song, so we thought, why don't we make a picture book out of it? Let's show kids with lovely illustrations the spirit of the song of pitching in to make things go well.
Yeah. I love that. I remember the last time we spoke, you were talking about collaborating with those singers in Toronto, and you were so excited about working with them.
Well, our work together went really well. The album that we did, where they were the featured guests, is my latest album, Penny Penguin. And in Canada, it won a Juno Award, which is our version of the Grammys.
Congratulations.
For Best Children's Album. Yeah, and they're wonderful to work with. They're a delight personally, and I feel so fortunate to have, become musical partners with them. And guess what? I'm recording a new album as we speak. And the Good Lovelies are also on several songs on this new album as well.
That's fantastic. You know, you've been making great music and telling stories to kids for so long. What keeps you energized in this area?
Life itself. You got to do something with your time, right?
Uh-huh.
And, well, seriously, I mean, I just love making music. I love the magic of songwriting. It's funny, like you write a song and you go, gee, a couple of days ago, this song did not exist, right? Mm-hmm. So it feels magical that inspiration comes and then you put your attention to it and you come out with a song. And in my case, knowing that I have millions of fans who are waiting for new music from me, it's an extra special feeling to sense that the new songs I'm creating will have a long shelf life.
Yeah. I've talked to a lot of authors about their creative process and where their ideas come from. Many authors tell me it starts with a what if. I ask, what if we did this? What if we did that? What about for you, for creating these stories that you tell in song? Where do these ideas come for you?
Well, it works in very many ways, depending on the song. The general theme of my new album is the power of love. Mm. And isn't that what we all need to hear more about?
Amen, yes.
During these tumultuous times. Mm-hmm. So there's a song I wrote called Love is Everywhere, which is true, you see. So I like to, if I'm thinking about a topic like love, well then how can I give expression to new thoughts about love? How can I share what is true about love? Because it's not a small thing. It's the most powerful energy that we know. Love is infinite. It grows the more you share it. Imagine that. Mm-hmm. So it's certainly worthy of a song or two, and I'm hoping that I've done justice to that particular topic on this album.
Yeah. Well, it is true. It's the only thing that you can give away, and it comes back to you. You get more back, and it's a beautiful message for kids. Are you conscious or aware that as you're singing for kids and creating these books and songs for kids, that you're also speaking to the parents, that they're learning and getting something from your thoughts?
That's right. That's a very good point, Jed. My audience now consists of tens of millions of beluga grads, as I call them, the adults who were big Raffi fans when they were little, and now they've grown up. They have their own kids. So when I write for a new album, I do keep the beluga grads in mind. And as always, there have been adults in my audience receiving the new songs to share with their kids. And And now that's even more so. As I say, the Beluga Grads contingent is a very big pool. Is that the word I want for Beluga? No, very big pod. Yeah, pod. That's a pod of Beluga Grads. And they tell me that they love sharing the new music with their kids. And so that's it. It's a pretty good thing I've got going.
Yeah. I recently had a Latin Grammy nominee, Sonia de los Santos, on the show, and I asked her how cool is it that her and I and you get to perform for kids?
Performing for kids is such a joy. They come for the joy of it. They come to sing the songs that they love, and they love humor. When I crack a joke or two, I have some bad jokes and puns, and a lot of them have to do with bananas for some reason. Maybe because I'm bananas. But anyway, they meet you where you are, you know, and I'm doing some shows this year, all of them in Canada, but we have a lot of fun when we get together.
I'm wondering if you're like me when I do my educational magic shows. There's a lot of jokes that I say that I know are going to die because they die all the time. But there's one person in the back of the audience that gets it, and they start laughing, and that just brings joy to my heart.
Well, it's just for me, it's the fun of being with my audience. You know, we've come together to share some songs, share some laughs, and I have a really easy way with it. You know, I've been doing this for 50 years. Do you know that? Mm-hmm. So you figure by now I've got a good handle on it.
Going back to Mama Loves It, I love the idea of helping kids see that the things that they might complain about, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, turning it around and helping them see the joy in it. Well, I get to help my mom. I get to work with my friends.
That's well said. That's exactly right. The spirit of the song is it's fun to help, to ask Mama, how can I help Mama? How can I help Papa? You know, and to feel like you're part of a team, you know, because that's what a family is. Mm-hmm. It's not parents always doing stuff for kids, but how can we together, okay, you do this and I'll do that. You sweep up the floor, I'll tidy the bed, or, you know, you do the bed this time and I'll do the floor, depending on the age of the kids, of course, you know, but even from the youngest years, you can give kids something to do that and make them feel part of the team. And I like that.
Yeah. Yes. I think when we give our kids opportunities to chip in, we're empowering them.
That's exactly right. And sometimes they might have trouble with the chore that they're doing, and that's okay. You can let them figure it out. You know, you don't want to help them too much, just enough, but let them work at it.
Yeah. Raffi, you're mentioning that you've been at this for over 50 years. When you started 50 years ago, did you set out to be the iconic children's entertainer?
You got to be kidding, Jed. I was just trying to pay back a bank loan at the time, a modest bank loan that I needed to make that very first album, Singable Songs for the Very Young. Mm-hmm. How could I ever imagine that it would become the best-selling children's album of all time, pretty much? And these days, you know, celebrating the 50th anniversary of Singable Songs, I feel an immense gratitude that I've been given this career, this joy-making vehicle of music, and that my fans have stayed with me, and that the music has an enduring quality about it, because you just never know. And so I feel very grateful to still be doing this work, to be in good health and in good voice.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You mentioned that you're going to be touring Canada. How many dates do you have lined up?
Well, I have a few weekends here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got, there are shows in Montreal coming up, April 18th, I believe it is, April 19th. So folks from Vermont and nearby states can come up for that show. Mm-hmm. There are some tickets left. Not a lot, but some left. Uh-huh. And then in June, I'm going to be in Alberta Actually, I'm already hearing from a lot of U.S. families who are saying, we're traveling all the way to see you in such and such a place, because they figure they better come to where I am,
Sure.
And I welcome one and all. In the fall, I'm going to be in Toronto area, and then in the later fall, back on the West Coast in Vancouver. So there are opportunities for American families to hop across the border and see me.
That's great.
If I may say,
Sure.
Concert information, the details and the dates, people can go to raffinews.com and look for Raffi/concerts, and all the info is there, all the details.
Excellent. Raffi, when my beautiful wife and I became empty nesters, she right away said, we have to get our passports and start traveling. And I said, great, where do you want to go? Well, I don't want to go crazy. Let's go to Canada. So we did. We did a tour of the Maritimes.
Nice.
Said, what do you want to do next? And she said, well, let's go to Montreal. I heard that's great. And we did that in Quebec City. And then the next year she said, well, I want to do Niagara Falls in Toronto. Fantastic. We did that. We loved it. And then I said to her, where do you want to go next? And she said, well, we've already seen everything there is to see in Canada. And I said, oh, no, we haven't.
Not yet. Not quite.
Yes. Tell me, where have your concerts taken you? Have you performed all over the world?
No, it's been mostly in Canada and the U.S. Although recently I was saying to myself, wouldn't it be fun for my 80th birthday, say in a couple of years, to do some shows in Europe? I think it'd be fascinating to see how Irish kids would take to my music. And I know I have fans in England. And, in the digital era now, your music is available on various listening platforms all around the world. So you never know. I might branch out overseas.
Well, yeah, fingers crossed. Tell me, you've seen a lot of change in the music industry. You mentioned now music is streaming. How do you feel about the changes that you've experienced?
Well, things do change. The world changes. Changes the nature of life. One thing that does not change is every young child's need for love and respect, nurturance, to respect the dignity of every child. That need is a primary developmental need for growing up healthy. That's what doesn't change about the young of our human family. And it's to these young that I've been devoted all this time, and I continue to be.
Yeah. I almost, if somebody is out there and they're thinking, boy, Raffi's done so much for me, I'd love to do something great for him. What would you tell that person?
What a lovely question. People may not know that I have a foundation.
Oh.
It's called the Raffi Foundation for Child Honoring. And we would be, grateful in accepting donations from people. You can just go to raffifoundation.org, have a look at what we're about. We have an online course in child honoring, which is all the various ways we can honor the principles of child honoring, principles like respectful love, diversity, caring community, nonviolence, emotional intelligence. How can we enrich our lives and our relations with our kids with these child honoring principles? And people who go and take the online course in child honoring, which is about 18 to 20 hours, they tell us that it's the single best resource place for everything to do with parenting that they've found. They really love it. So there's a couple of choices there for people. You can either take the course or you can donate to our foundation. We'd be grateful.
Yeah. Wow. What inspired you to create that foundation and that course?
In 1997, the philosophy of child honoring came to me in a vision that woke me up from a sound sleep on a Sunday morning.
Really?
I had been thinking, Jed, about what would a child-honoring society look like? What would that be like? And I guess almost like an answer to my prayer question, I was given in a vision this, what I can only call in a luminous moment, a philosophy intact that basically says the priority need for healthy human development in a society is in the early years. It's in the first foundational years. So child honoring emphasizes the primacy of early years in lifelong positive productivity and resourceful living. Because when a child's first life experiences are life affirming, then all good things can grow. But if a child, sadly, does not feel loved and respected, is either neglected or maltreated, God forbid, but it does happen, then that trajectory over a lifetime is very troubled. So it behooves us to give society our best by giving our best to the very young who depend on it.
Yeah. You know, that's why I launched Reading with Your Kids back in 2017. I had all these experts saying, oh, you love podcasting and you should do a podcast on this or that. And I actually said a prayer, and it became very clear to me that what I needed to celebrate was the relationship I have with my now adult kids, which was built on a foundation of reading together and listening to music together, which grew into cooking together and building and all that other kind of stuff.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. Tell me, do you have a favorite musical act that you love to listen to?
I have quite an eclectic taste in music, so I can't really answer that question.
Was there anybody, one of the things I love asking authors is, you know, did their characters surprise them at all? Now, you're creating all these different short stories that you're telling in 2 or 3 minutes in your songs. Were you ever surprised by one of the songs and stories that you came up with?
What a good question. Well, there are surprises all the time, although by now I just chalk them up to, hey, this is the fun of making music for kids. Like the other day, I recorded a song called One Sock Two. It's about socks. But it's zany as can be. And zany as can be, and I tried not to put too much into the song. So I didn't talk about mismatched socks or, you know, sometimes I like to imply the humor, you know. So One Sock Two, when you hear the song, you kind of go, what is this? And then you find yourself singing along because you can't help it. So I love having fun with the inspiration that comes my way.
That's great. That really is great. One last question, I guess. If there's somebody out there that loves music, wants to get in and make it their career, what advice would you give them, especially if there's part of them saying, oh, I love performing for kids, but are people going to take me seriously if I'm a children's music performer?
Well, if you're singing for children for the love of it, then you're off to a good start. That's the number one need. You've got to do it for the love of it and out of a spirit of service and with humility as you learn your craft. You know, you learn from those who, you know, went before you and those of us who are still here, you know. But, yeah, it takes respect for your young audience as whole people who are deserving of your best, and do it with love, and good luck to you is what I say.
That's great. Please remind everybody where they can go to find out more about Mama Loves It and more about everything coming from Raffi.
Mama Loves It. You can go to your favorite children's bookstore, order it there, or find it there, hopefully, or you can get it online. And as I say, for concert information, you go to raffinews.com and click on Raffi and concerts, and it'll all be there for you.
We've had a really wonderful time speaking to the author of Mama Loves It, Our guest has been Raffi. Hey, Raffi, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Jed, thank you so much. All the best.
Hey, this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by AspireDrinks.com. Hey, I have a quick question for you. Have you ever wanted a little extra energy, but not the kind that makes your heart race or leaves you crashing an hour later? Well, that's exactly why I want to tell you about Aspire Drinks. You'll find them at AspireDrinks.com. Aspire calls itself a healthy energy drink, and honestly, that description really fits. Instead of loading you up with sugar or extreme caffeine, Aspire delivers a gentle, steady boost with 80 milligrams of natural caffeine from green tea and guarana. That's about half the caffeine of most energy drinks, enough to help you stay focused without the jitters or the crash. It's also zero sugar, 0 calories, and 0 artificial additives, which makes it a great choice for parents, teachers, and anyone trying to make healthier choices while still getting things done. And get this, it actually tastes great, light, crisp, and lightly sparkling, with flavors like sweet cherry, raspberry acai, mango lemonade. That's what I love. No heavy aftertaste and easy on the stomach. Aspire is packed with B and C vitamins, biotin, and ginger. And it's vegan, gluten-free, keto-friendly, really designed for real life. And just for Reading with Your Kids listeners, you can get an exclusive discount of 20% off. That's the highest discount available when you shop at AspireDrinks.com and use our promo code READ. That's READ at AspireDrinks.com. Healthy energy done right. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is sponsored by Ramble Office. You know, before I tell you about Ramble Office, let me tell you about what travel used to look like for me. When I take the Reading with Your Kids studio on the road, it was like a lot. I had one box for the mixer, another case for microphones, a satchel for my laptop, cables everywhere. And I always felt like I was forgetting something. That's why Ramble Office really clicked with me. Rambo takes everything I used to juggle, tech gear, personal stuff, and puts it into one smart, great-looking unit that's designed to be a mobile office, not just luggage. Everything has a place. Everything stays protected. And when you get to where you're going, you're ready to work. Instead of digging through bags or repacking your life every time you move, Ramble keeps your setup organized and ready to deploy. Travel days stop being chaos and start being productive. It's sleek, modern, built for people whose work doesn't stop just because they're on the move. And if your job follows you, whether that's podcasting, teaching, consulting, or creating, Ramble is worth a look. Go to RambleOfficeAnywhere.com, all one word, RambleOfficeAnywhere.com. Use the promo code READ, R-E-A-D, and receive 5% off any product. It's exclusive for Reading with Your Kids listeners. Check it out today, RambleOfficeAnywhere.com, promo code READ. Join us right now from the beautiful city of Chicago. Our guest is returning to the show to celebrate her brand new book. It's called Can You? Please welcome back Dr. Rekha Rajan. Hey,
Hello.
Dr. Rekha, how are you?
Thank you for having me again. I'm doing great. Super excited to talk to you about my picture book debut, actually. I've published several other books for children, but this is my very first picture book, and it's super fun. And yes, can you dance like a peacock?
That is beautiful. I love that. And unless a peacock is a very stiff animal, I have to say that I can't dance like a peacock right now.
You know, the idea for this book, we were chatting briefly about my 3 years of living in California and quickly returning back to Chicago. But the idea for the book came during COVID, actually, because my children were younger then. They were probably, let's say, 5, 7, and 9 at the time. And there was no education. We were all parents stuck at home. Schools were struggling with what to do, maybe an hour or two of Zoom, and then they'd say, go outside and enjoy the nice weather. And it was just a lot. And I was working on other projects and other things, but I realized my kids we weren't going outside because of wildfires, and we weren't getting physical activity, and they weren't reading. And so amidst playing various games, we would act like different animals as one game, for example. And they really loved it. And because of my arts background, my music and theater and dance background, I made it into this kind of musical activity. So, hey, we're going to move around like peacocks, but what do they actually do? How can we show that physically? And that's where the idea for the story came from. And I thought, you know what, if my kids are really enjoying this, it could become a really fun and engaging read aloud for children and families. Because the other piece is, when we want to read aloud, and I spoke to you last week about the Read Aloud Factor, the book that had all the brain research in there. And reading should not just be this one-way experience, right? And the more you read aloud, the healthier your brain is. And so I wanted this to be an engaging read aloud. So there are prompts in every section of the book. So after you learn about why peacocks dance and how they move, and in fact, a lot of people have actually written to me and said they didn't realize the males were the only ones that have all those beautiful feathers. But there's a dance break. So I'm blocking myself. So kiddos get up and move and actually dance. So I've done several live presentations of this book, a couple of big festivals in Chicago, school events, bookstore events, and it's so fun because all the adults get up and move. I did the Printers Row Lit Fest last month in the South Loop of Chicago. There were hundreds and hundreds of booksellers and authors. And there was a policeman that joined in from the street, parents, their children, I loved that kind of reciprocal relationship taps back into my experience of being a performer on stage, but it came out of a book. Yeah. So there's all the background of the story.
Well, I love that. And I love that. And I have very vivid, beautiful, wonderful memories of my kids and me getting involved in books like that. A book like, hey, can you do this? Can you dance like this? Can you wiggle your nose like that? And I mean, it's been decades since my kids were young enough to cuddle up on my lap and have me read to them. They're both bigger than me right now. But it's just such a wonderful thing, and it really helps kids fall in love with reading. It helps kids fall in love with us, and us falling in love with our kids. And so I'm super happy that you've created Can You Dance Like a Peacock? And I love also the STEM kind of connection with it, in that we're starting to, we learn that it's only peacocks who have those beautiful feathers, and only male peacocks that have those beautiful feathers, and learning other facts about different animals and insects through your book.
Yeah, it's a very STEM focused book, which goes back to my early childhood background and teaching young children. There's so many different animals in here. I mean, I could have written 100, but it is a picture book. So there's gazelles, and I did a lot of research, of course, because it is a nonfiction book, even though it's very lyrical and fun and playful. And I didn't know that the word for what they do is called stotting, S-T-O-T. So it was fun to research and find out things myself. The bees that do the waggle dance, it's actually a scientific term. And they use that, well, I'm sure there's a more scientific term, but it's actually called the waggle dance, as they move to tell other bees where to get honey. Super fun with the kiddos putting their hands on their hips and waggling and wiggling around the room. And dolphins, of course. Mm-hmm. So the playfulness is, they're not really dancing, right? It's not a choreographed dance, but their movements are natural, and they use these movements. All of these different animals and insects and creatures use these movements to communicate. So, for example, the dung beetle, one of my favorites, does a 365 dance on his dinner, which is poop. And he's telling the other dung beetles, don't touch mine. This is my poop that I'm going to eat. The Spanish dancer Sea Slug, and I have to do a shout out to Hannah Abo, who's the illustrator. She did such a great job with this. You can see the Spanish dancer is dancing and moves to hide away if it's in danger, but her art depicts all of these beautiful colors in the ocean, but then a little playfulness if you don't really see that that's the predator coming. And then flamingos. I ended with this. So there's really an arc to the story. There's all these different creatures, but then the dance prompt for flamingos is find a partner. So probably a parent and child, or two siblings or whatever. Find your partner and march, march, march together. And then a little recap of all of the creatures, but then really helping children understand that the best dance moves are inside of you. And I always bring along instruments, and then I play instruments, and everybody gets up and does their own kind of free form dance. And then at the end of the book, there's a lot of nonfiction facts about each of the dances. So to take that STEM piece a little further, and then I created activities for teachers and parents to do with the book. So a little academic extension.
What a wonderful, wonderful book, and what a wonderful service for teachers and for families. You know, just because something's labeled for teachers doesn't parents, you have to remember that you are your child's first and most important teacher.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you see something for teachers, go right in there, because that's for you too.
Yes.
I love this because, you know, we talk about, and I hear from parents all the time, like, oh, my kid wants me to read this book 500 times. And yeah, if you read it the same way 500 times, that's a drag, but there's no need to read a book the same way, especially a book like Can You Dance Like a Peacock? I mean, you can read it as a story, you can go through it and then just take one each. I mean, the whole thing about, you know, bees and how they dance to communicate, like, where to go. We're here in Chicago on the south side, and if you follow my butt and how I'm wiggling, you go 3 blocks north, turn right, and then there's where the honey is or the pollen.
That's exactly what it is. They actually create a path with their wiggling and waggling for others to follow. It's really incredible. Yeah, and that STEM education piece, again, the idea came out of COVID and being even more of having to be a teacher for my children because, you know, everybody was struggling, and having that extension of different activities you could do. And, you know, there's a graphing thing in there. There's art activities in there. There's so much you could do, not even with this book, but with all the books you read aloud. To create those extensions, I think is so important.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's just, you know, it's one thing for a kid to sit in a classroom, even if you have the most engaging teacher in the world. They're not going to really fall in love with the subject or fall in love with learning as much as they will if they sit down and they fall in love with learning and reading in your lap. Coming home and it's like, I've been at school, and well, let's come home and do something fun. And, you know, we can learn while we're having fun, and this is such a neat way to do it.
Yeah, again, it goes back to that research on reading aloud, how important it is for your child's brain, the social emotional piece, building a bond, and just helping. Some of the reviews, the wonderful reviews that have come in, have noted exactly what you said, that it's a way to get kids up and moving and engaged with reading. And so they're not just sitting here and listening to the same story told over and over again. Yes, that's important. That piece is important to reading aloud, but there's an engagement here. They're actually involved with the story, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah. So I have to take a minute. You know, we talked a little bit about it the last time you were here, but it's been a while. You are an author. You're a musician. You're an educator. I mean, you're a parent most of all, but where do you find time?
People ask me that all the time. You know, it's like this idea honestly came out of nowhere when just interacting with my kids, and I jotted it down, and you have to make time for it. You just have to make time for everything. Having them in school all day helps. So it was a lot less effective for me to try and build up a writing career when every 30 minutes somebody was hungry. So it's nice that they're in a routine. I can get into a writing routine. But what I've really tried to do is, you know, the first 20 years of my career was performing. It was performing on stage or across the country, operas, musicals. And I don't necessarily get to do that as much anymore. It's probably been 10 years since I was on a stage. And I just really always have been a creative person and wanted to find a way to continue to have creative outlets. And so this helps me with that. Most of my books have some art component or music component in there. I have a board book series. I know we're not talking about that today, but
fine.
It's called This Is Music. And there's 4 books, and each one is an introduction to musical instruments for children, and there's an instrument in the book. So with everything that I write, I try and bring that music education piece into it. Definitely get the most done when they're in school, though.
Yeah. You know, I love that. I think one thing that people who read your books, visit your website, one thing that I hope that they're getting is that we don't need to be, a lot of times we slap a label on ourselves. I'm a teacher. I'm an engineer. I write software. I do this. But those labels limit us. And you are somebody who you have a bunch of labels.
I do.
And it's like the more labels you have, the more you do, because it's just reminding yourself that I don't need to be pigeonholed into this one spot. And I think that's a great lesson for everyone, but I think it's especially a great lesson for us to be able to share with our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we all have certain passions and things that we love. We have things that we're good at, things we gravitate to. But I really, in my work as an early childhood educator, it's important that children have opportunity and access to try different things. How would you ever know if you're going to be the next great piano player if you don't even have access to a piano? So one of the things for me that I've always advocated for is that piece of access and equity. One of the things is to do that through books. That's a way for children to learn about different careers, different pathways, see themselves in stories. I talk a lot at school visits about the fact that I've always loved writing. I've always had a diary. My mom found this book. It's like a blank book that I created poems and all this stuff in there, limericks, all these great things that my fifth grade teacher gave to all of us and said, do whatever you want with this. She saved it, and 30 years later, gave it to me. And so I realized I always loved writing, but I never thought I could have author as a profession until I was probably in my early 30s when I started dabbling into maybe I want to do this now because I'm not going to have the creative outlet of being on stage. So yeah, I have that. I have, author, singer, dancer, parent, wife.
Yeah.
Mother of multiple animals that are roaming around in the house. But yeah, it's important for children to be able to see that. My youngest really wants to play in the NFL, and I'm, want to support him. I'm not thrilled about that. It's such a, scary sport to me as a parent. But then he's also like, but I also love math, and I also love mixing things. So I said, yes, explore what you want to do and see. But I think for children that may not have access to a piano or to be able to take, sports classes or whatever, seeing themselves and seeing those ideas in books is what I think is the most important thing.
I think that's a huge point because we don't understand that not every kid has the opportunity to know somebody who is most kids don't get a chance to meet somebody who's a professional magician or a musician or magician in my case.
Yes, exactly.
I know for me growing up, when I told my family that I was going to leave human services and be a performer, they're like, no one does that for a living. That's insane. Right. That's crazy. And I think the same is true, like for kid, has nobody in their circle that's a scientist or a researcher, then it's like, well, how do I get into that? And, the first way is just books and talking about it and having us sitting down, reading those books saying, you can do that too.
Yeah. I mean, that's a similar kind of reaction I got from my family. My family's from South India, and the stereotype of what Indians do is real. I think almost every single one of my cousins is an MD. My brother's a surgeon. My dad was an engineer before he retired. My mom's a teacher. So it's a very targeted path. And so when I said, I want to be an opera singer, it was kind of like, what? Who does that? So thankfully it was, I was supported by them, and I had that pathway to be able to perform and do that. I also then fell in love with education and did end up teaching music. And then did end up getting my doctorate. So, I can't write you a prescription, but I can sing to you. I can sing you to sleep. No, but I was able to follow that pathway. And I think, honestly, if I didn't have that music career and that opportunity to perform, I don't know that it would have led me into the creative path of being able to write books like this or study, the impact of the arts on children's development. I was able to do that because I came from that world of the arts and had that knowledge. So absolutely, if you don't have the modeling or the access or the support, it's very difficult. And I read so many books about, people that were, who had singing careers, or this person's a singer. It was inspiring for me to want to do that. And so I think if, you don't have access to certain things, books are and should be an entry point for all children.
Yeah. Tell me, let's take advantage of you being a doctor, that there's a doctor in the house. Talk a little bit about the benefits that kids, we talk a lot about the benefits of reading, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but just talk a moment about the benefits of encouraging our kids to check out the arts. A kid playing piano, playing drums, they're not wasting their time. There's some real benefits beyond just learning how to play a piano.
Yeah, so there's a lot here. One of the things people come to me and say is like, why is music so important for early childhood? And the thing I always start with is think about how we teach young children the alphabet. We teach it through music. We teach it through song. There's a reason for that. There are connections through the arts and through music with the things we naturally learn. Yes, there's research on music and math and how the skills that you gain when you learn an instrument and how it connects to certain parts of the brain. I'm actually doing a TEDx talk at the end of this month with our library and the big topic is creativity. But this is what I'm actually going to be speaking about. When we think about traits of a creative person, right? We think of things like able to take risks, see things in new ways, be open-minded. And in my research, what I've actually found is those same traits, looking at things in new ways, taking risks, being open-minded, are actually also the developmental traits of a 4-year-old. So we are naturally born creative. Something changes. Is it the school system? Is it our environment? That when we get older, we think, hey, I'm not really a creative person anymore. But that is one of the most important things that people look at in work. There was CEOs of the top 400 or Fortune 400, 500 companies, whatever that was. They were interviewed and they all said the number one trait they look for when they're hiring somebody is creativity. So if we know that that's important and we know that we are actually born with these skills, what can we do to support and build creativity in our children? And there's only one subject area that really does that, and that's the arts.
Yeah. So,
yes.
So valuable in any kind of job situation, if you're able to sit down and look at a problem and suggest a solution to that problem. That's kind of like sitting down and writing an opera or writing a book, or, it's that you're tapping into that creativity, and that's a beautiful thing.
And it's incredible to me. People that I meet that are, CEOs of companies or surgeons or whatever, my brother was in gifted math when he was in elementary school. He has nothing to do with his career now, but there is, somebody's playing an instrument for 10 years and they don't talk about it, but they reflect on that and the impact it had on them. And then they're like, I want to start a piano again. So it's an important part of childhood. It's just like playing sports and the physical activity. The arts really support creative development and creative thinking. And so while you might think, we're doing a little art project in preschool, we're done. It's not that simple. It's building those skills and the ability to think creatively. Again, like you said, if you're a surgeon, you want to be able to think creatively. If you're a teacher, I always say your classroom is your stage. Mm-hmm. You need to be flexible, ready to pivot, ready to move. So those skills that the arts teach are so important for us later in life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love sitting down and talking with you because we get into so many different areas, and there's so much more about you. People can find out more by visiting your website. Where should they go to find that?
Yes, everything is very simple. RekhaSrajan.com. My Instagram and social media handles are the same, Rekha S. Rajan. Just tried to keep it same as my name. So, and there's always updates on there, new projects coming out. Many that I'm very, very excited about, especially coming out next year, a new chapter book series, and just other events that I'm doing. I have a lot coming up over the next couple of months to promote the books, but it's really nice, especially with books like this, to see the audience and the readers and the families get up and do the prompts and do it together. It's that, and you're a performer too, so you know this. There's such a reciprocal relationship we have with the audience when we perform, and you can't be a performer without it. We feed off of the audience. And with that, I really want reading to be like that for children. I want them to feel a part of the experience and not just that they're being read to, which is important, but that they have some engagement with the story. So there's tips on my website, things, for teachers and parents. So please go visit.
Yeah. I was thinking, this is just one of those things that just came to my mind as you were talking about the arts, and you mentioned your son wanted to be in the NFL, and it's like every high school has a football stadium and a football program, and we love it. And as I heard in the video this morning, it benefits one company, the NFL, and it's really dangerous for a lot of kids. But the first programs to get cut are the arts programs and all these other things. And
always,
if we could just, and I think one of the reasons we are so supportive of football and sports is because it's interactive. When we're in the stands, we feel like we can make a difference and we can change the outcome by the way that we're rooting everybody on.
You're right.
And so let's just understand we can do the same thing. We can have when we're supporting our kids in the arts and in STEM and mathematics and science, we're participating. We're not screaming our heads off, but our support adds to the performance. And there's a little piece of us every time our kids get up on that dance stage for their recital and they fall over because the kids in front of them fell over. But we're part of that, and it's beautiful. And so let's just remember that so that we're out there and we're supporting the arts and STEM and all those other great things.
Yeah, and we have to remember as parents, as community leaders, the role that we give to a subject in school denotes the value of that to a child. So if the arts aren't present in school, or if a child goes to a music class once a week, what value do they play in that? I remember when I was growing up, people would say music class was the blow-off class because nobody cared about it. There was no value put on it. It was an elective. It was an afterthought. So the more value we place on the arts, the more we recognize, and the way that you do with STEM, we put that A in there so it's STEAM, and we get the arts involved with science and technology and engineering and math. That gives value to it, not just for the children, but for the parents, seeing these activities and the newsletters when they go home. And we can recognize that this isn't just somebody, talking about, I love music, I want to be a singer. There is a deeper connection here to our critical thinking skills and the ways in which we learn to interact with each other. My oldest, he's 14 now, very, very shy, introverted, very talented visual artist. And I don't know how he, in middle school, just decided he wanted to audition for one of the musicals. He's never been on stage before, never performed. And he's so funny, Jed. I can't tell you, he got cast in all these leads. And I was looking at my 3 children, and I thought, you're the one I least thought would end up getting bitten by the theater bug. But you know what it did for him? It gave him confidence. Mm-hmm. He created a new whole network of friends. He was able to, I even asked him, I said, why don't you do tech crew if, you don't get in a part or something? And he said, Mom, I really love being on stage because when I'm in a costume, I can be somebody else. This is all incredible stuff for your own identity and your development. I'm sorry, but you can't get that in anything else. That's why the arts are so unique.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you've preaching to the choir here, and we want everybody else to join our choir. In the meantime, please be sure to check out Can You Dance Like a Peacock? It is a debut picture book from our guest, Dr. Rekha Rajan. Hey, Dr. Rekha, thanks so much for being back with us.
Thank you so much.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review and, of course, subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We'd love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Gently Magic on X, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website, readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Raffi. Please be sure to check out Mama Loves It. Also want to thank Dr. Rekha Rajan. Please be sure to check out Can You Dance Like a Peacock? I want to thank my team, Chris Doherty, Jackson Stoltalera. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better, kinder, more empathetic place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode. of Reading with Your Kids.